Here we are again, and looky here. During the break, our favorite brewer in Las Vegas, Anthony, poured us, broke open the jug, growler,
Large container.
Or jug. Yep.
large container, and poured it, and it's awesome. Before we get into this, we do have some people who have some of our guests have some questions. So, oh my gee, my two most enjoyable things. Somebody obviously likes the idea as well as I do of coffee and beer. And do you have a sampler of your beers? Our viewer would like to know.
We do. Depending on how many different beers we have on tap at the brewery, up to 10. So we give it about a 2-ounce pour of each of those.
Okay.
So you get a good idea of the variety of beers that we offer.
And do you sell them here in bottles locally?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a sampler pack that you sell?
Currently, right now, no. We just sell in 22-ounce bottles, so they're single-serve individual bottles.
Okay.
So we've got 3 year-round beers that we produce, and then another 7 seasonal beers that we produce.
Great.
So.
Alrighty. Well, one of our viewers says, have a drink for me. So on that note, I think I shall, because again, I'm going to taste this for the first time in my whole life, and after waiting a whole year. Cheers to the coffee. Cheers to the beer.
That's good.
Well.
So this beer, this is
Wow.
one of our year-round beers. It's called Holly Notes Oatmeal Stout, and you get a good sense of the flavor of the beer itself. But then when you add the coffee to it, it just finishes nice and smooth on the palate.
This was well worth the wait. Well worth the wait. I've got to say a little bit that in the nose, if that applies to beer as wine, you do get the hint of coffee right there, and then the flavor it settles in. It's this is really. It was, like I said, it was so worth the wait.
Well, have you tried the normal rolling out stout?
Excuse me.
I'm just curious, and the reason I bring it up.
No, I do believe I did but it was a while ago, because I did do the samplers when I was out. So tell us about the Rolling Oat Stout.
Well, I can just tell you from my experience drinking them, this and the Imperial Stout that they did initially with the coffee. What I noticed difference-wise was that the coffee stouts tend to have a lot sweeter finish, smoother.
Okay.
It's got more body, and doesn't mean the other ones aren't great, but the coffee, if you compare them side by side, you see a very strong difference in what they've got going on.
Well, an interesting thing too, just now with that still on my palate is, and I don't. Why is it a seasonal beer? Because this would be great even as an iced. Some people do put ice in their beer.
Yeah, we usually discourage people from doing that.
I would too, but I
know.
do actually have friends who do it, and they put salsa in it and all kinds of stuff.
My mom does, so I guess I can't be.
Don't mind me. You keep talking.
When
You
this is
can
on
keep
draft,
talking. I'm going to
do you
sit.
guys put it on a nitrogen tap?
This is purely research.
Yeah, so the base beer, the Holly Notes, that's on nitrogen. But when we do the coffee, typically it's just CO2.
Yeah.
So, but little education on that. Nitrogen beers, say people are most familiar with Guinness stout from Ireland, poured on nitrogen. It gives it a nice, tight, thick, creamy head, and you don't have as much carbonation in that product.
Okay.
So you don't get what's called like a carbonic bite. You don't get that sharpness from the carbonation itself. So the nitrogen just helps to kind of smooth out.
Yeah, we
body.
we do a nitrogen cold brew. So the kind of coffee that you're using here is cold brew coffee, and we put it into a keg and we run it through on a nitrogen tap and a stout faucet.
Yep.
You do?
Yeah.
Your coffee straight?
And what it does, we're using 100% nitrogen, so it doesn't give it any carbonation, but it adds that texture that's really, really creamy. It kind of makes it feel like it's got calories in it, but it doesn't.
Well,
And
that's
it's nice,
interesting.
Yeah.
I would never have thought that for a million years.
Yeah, I was just thinking this would be really great on nitrogen to see kind of how it presents in body, because it's already so rich and thick.
It is, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of rolled oats in it. So you get some of that body from that. And this is not a strong beer. It's only 5.7%. So it's,
And why is that?
Why is it not a strong beer?
Yeah, I never
Five.
did
Only
understand
five.
that. I know that there are restrictions on alcohol content for beer.
We do not have any restrictions in the state of Nevada. We make beers that are 4.3% all the way up to 10.4%. So Josh mentioned earlier we made a Imperial Stout coffee beer. So stout, similar to this, more body, more sweetness, as you mentioned, but that's a 9.2% beer.
Holy cow!
Yeah, you wouldn't know by
No.
drinking it. It doesn't taste like it's got any alcohol in
I
it.
probably wouldn't
finishes-
still be sitting up.
Finishes sweeter than this, so during the fermentation process, more sugars are left over. So and again, that just comes back to knowing the beans and getting the knowledge from Josh, so we know how to apply it to a certain type of beer.
And I think what people might be interested in is, when did you brew this?
This actual one, we brewed the coffee 4 days ago. Like I said, a cold brew at Toddy.
Do you brew the coffee or do you brew the coffee?
They brew it. They do it
Okay,
on
so
site,
you
yeah.
give them the beans. Okay, you select the beans. I think that's an interesting thing to know. And do you brew it with heat, like he would brew it?
Well, cold
or-
brew is
cold brew.
is a
Cold brew.
Okay.
cold or room temperature water. It basically means we're not using any hot water to do the extraction, and then what you end up getting is a sweeter coffee with less tannins.
Okay, because it's not releasing them.
Yeah, it's not extracting as much. It's like leaving a tea bag in the cup too long, and you tend to pick up some of that bitterness with
Right.
with cold water or cold brew. Or some people call it toddy as well. There's a system for that, but the idea is it's like kind of like doing sun tea. You're creating a slower, sweeter extraction, and it takes a lot of time. Takes a little bit more. It's a little more labor intensive, of course, but there's a lot of interesting benefits in the cup. Like, it's different, and in most industries you don't see a lot of. You don't see new things often, so it's fun to kind of see how people's preferences change. Yeah.
So you brewed the coffee, you cold brewed the beans out there, just like you would do the oatmeal for the oatmeal beer?
We buy
I
like
missing something?
the malted barley and the oats and things like that from our supplier. So that already comes to us what's called malted. So the barley is heated and to extract different flavors and colors from it. So that we buy from our supplier, but the coffee itself.
I'm trying to be a lady here, but what can a girl do? I have to take
Well, that's
one
why
more
we
sip.
brought it.
Keep talking. It's really,
So
it grows on you too.
getting back to the question you had earlier, is why is it a seasonal? Right now, with our limited space that we have, it's difficult for us to make it in larger batches.
Oh, but when you move to Bonanza, there's hope.
There's a
right?
good chance that we'll do that. Yep.
So throughout this holiday season, will you be doing the Imperial and this one and rotating them, or do you have?
So this is available year round. Imperial Stout will be our next seasonal that will come up.
Okay.
And we will definitely make a coffee version of it like we always do.
Wow.
So it's just the style, the oatmeal stout and the Imperial Stout are just perfect for a coffee infused a beer.
And
So-
speaking of seasonal and everything, are there seasonal coffees? There must be. The beans
all the
are.
coffees are seasonal. I mean, they're growing around the world, around the equatorial belt, if you will. And the coffees are different from place of origin down to the farm.
And how do you market that to your customers? I mean, do you do like, oh, this is a seasonal special, or you can, that
Usually, I just let people try coffee, and then and I think coffee is sort of the connoisseur of coffee is sort of a bit of an esoteric thing right now, but I really love it because you don't have to know anything about coffee. All you have to do is try it, and you try it, and a lot of people will just go, I don't know, it tastes different, I guess. And then when is when you go try another coffee that's not taken care of, and you'll immediately see the difference.
That would be in my kitchen.
I don't spend any time trying to educate people about why it's good or the taste, because it's something that people don't have. We don't have a cultural knowledge of it right now, especially in this town. But people just got to try it. I mean, we wouldn't have a business if people couldn't discern the difference between two products, or three or four or five or whatever. And if you've been drinking coffee for a while, it's nice to kind of come in and see different origins, meaning where did the coffee come from, what part of the world, down to the farm.
Right.
And if you're growing coffee on your farm and my farm's next to yours, and we're using the same soil, we're using everything, and you're better at doing it, your coffee's going to taste different.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like growing tomatoes. I don't know anything about growing tomatoes, and if you do, your tomato's going to taste better, actually, believe it or not. And that's why it's fun to get these small lot coffees, because when you typically buy coffee from the grocery store or from large producers, they are using a wide variety of coffees from maybe just the entire country, just whatever they can get, sometimes lower grade, and usually lower grade commodity coffees. And what they'll do is they tend to roast coffee dark in a way that's gonna roast out defects, so that you just have sort of a generic carbony kind of taste in your coffee. And I think coffee's about preference, so it's not about me saying, hey, this is better or not, but there isn't anything to offer in those coffees. It's just roasted in a way that's going to make it taste like coffee or brown water. So,
Well,
yeah.
you two have stumbled on something that just has put coffee and beer over the chart. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned because we're going to finish the beer, talk a little bit more about what's upcoming with U2 Craftsman, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Don't go away.